Welcome to the Leading Owls podcast, brought to you by Rice University's Doerr Institute for New Leaders. Each week, we bring you inspiring stories and practical tips from successful student leaders, faculty, and staff, along with leadership experts and coaches that will help guide you in your own leadership journey. Today, we are sitting down with Rice Business Senior Nico. Nico is in his second year as a head ambassador for the Doerr Institute for New Leaders and has participated in activation, synthesis, catalyst modules, and excursions, almost the whole breadth of Doerr programming. He holds leadership positions across the Rice campus, including in Rice Consulting and as the head PAA for Baker College. Following graduation this coming May, Nico will join Bain & Company, a global management consulting firm. In this episode, Nico shares his secrets for fully taking advantage of the opportunities available to you only here at Rice, and how you can use your time to grow as a leader, build skills that employers want, and achieve incredible things that will help you launch your career. Please welcome Nico. Hi, Nico. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Kelly. Of course. Happy to be here.
So give me a quick rundown on Nico. Name, year, college, major, and some of the top leadership positions you are involved in now or have been involved in at Rice.
Yeah. So senior from Baker. Always feels weird to say that I'm a senior. But yeah, last year on campus, originally from Princeton, New Jersey, studying business and data science. So kind of split my time between School of Business and School of Engineering. And in terms of the things I've been involved in on campus, I've done lots of things over my last couple of years here. At my college, Baker College, I've been the head PAA for the last 2-3 years. So really enjoy that aspect of mentorship, working with students on their academics. And then extracurricularly, I am the president of Rice Consulting, which is Rice's management consulting group. Been with that organization, started as an analyst my sophomore fall, been there ever since. I'm also the consulting head for the Rice Business Society. So I do a lot of mentorship, helping folks with recruiting, bringing firms to campus to help people learn about careers in that space. Also very passionate about leadership stuff. So have been involved with the Doerr Institute. Man, I think since actually my freshman fall, I did activation the first time. And then I think I've done at least one program every semester since, which is crazy. And now a lead ambassador. And then I've always been big on having a job on college because, having money to spend on college things is fun. So I've worked for the business school since my freshman fall as well, working across the business school, a number of different positions, started an organization there that now hires students to come work at the business school, which has been a lot of fun. Very involved on campus. It's something I'm very passionate about. And yeah, that's sort of the broad range of things I've done over the last couple of years.
Just a few things.
Yeah.
How did your involvement in campus activities shape your overall experience at Rice, especially in the business school?
So much. I think Rice in general has what you'll sometimes hear called the cult of busyness, which is that Rice students love to sign up for 1.5 billion things and try to do all of them. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got my freshman year was find the 3 big things that you are passionate about that you can do over your time at Rice, go up into a leadership position and get really involved in. I fell a little bit to the culty busyness and ended up doing 4, but my big things have been being a PAA at Baker, being involved with the Doerr Institute, having a job, and then being for professional purposes involved with Rice Consulting. And those have been sort of my big 4 things that I've stuck with throughout college. Freshman year, I think I was really trying to figure out, what do I want to do? What do I want to be involved in? And for me, it was always want to be involved in my college, want to have a job so I can make some money, and then want to be in something professionally. And that was sort of how I started to find the things that I wanted to be involved in. And I always tell people, your major is going to change 1.5 million times. The clubs you're involved in are going to change. You're going to add things and drop things. But start to think about, what are you passionate about? What are the things that you want to be involved in where you can make a difference over those years? Both because I think it's a lot more fun for us as students when we get to be involved in something and make a difference. But I think even, whether you are pre-med applying to med school or business and applying to jobs in whatever business field, I think those people look for not the quantity of things that you've done, but the quality of your involvement and the difference that you've made. And so I think I always thought about, where are the places and spaces where I feel like I can make a difference somewhere. That's something I've always looked for. And I think I've been fortunate enough to find a great intersection of things I'm super excited about, places where I can make a difference. And then those have just happened to align with the things I want to do professionally. Been a lot of fun there.
I love that. The quality of your involvement. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first club or organization you got involved with at Rice and what that was like? Or one of the first?
Yeah, the first organization I ever got involved with was my first job on campus, which was working for a department of the business school, which basically runs like short courses for executives with like Rice professors. Literally, it was like preparing swag bags. It was like making name tags for people. Like it was not glamorous, but it was freshman fall. That was the first job I ever had, was doing that stuff. And I think it was awesome because it taught me a lot about how to, even though the work was not particularly hard or particularly, making a swag bag is always so exciting, but it teaches you a lot about how do you be accountable for things? How do you communicate expectations with people? How do you organize your time? And starting to build some of those professional skills, even though I wasn't really thinking about them, it sort of laid that groundwork. I mean, I was fortunate enough that my boss's boss, I ended up getting along really well with, and he was really interested in the growth of the undergraduate business program, because when I was a freshman, that was the first full year of the undergraduate business program. So it was really this like new thing on campus. People were trying to figure out, oh, there's all these business majors. What do we do with them? The business school was looking for ways to take advantage of that. And so I started to work for him, and he basically said, hey, I love the fact that we hire students, but yeah, we're always going to need people for name tags, but you guys are taking these business classes. Why don't you find ways to apply them in jobs on campus? And so over like 3 years, he and I built up this organization together that now works across the business school. We have something like 30 something students that work in paid jobs across the business school that actually take the skills they learn in the classroom and bring it to different departments of the business school, working alongside staff in ways that is awesome for staff because it's great extra help for them, and it's great for students because they get to apply what they're learning in the classroom, whether that's in marketing, in data analytics, and operations stuff. It's been really cool for me to see. It's kind of been my baby over these last 3 years, and I think it taught me a lot about how to be a leader, how to like develop a vision and then communicate it, how to work with people. Shameless plug for Doerr. I think like a huge part of my ability to be successful in that kind of work is every semester, as I think about what are the challenges I'm facing, whether it was in that job, in that organization, or other things I do, like there are always Doerr programs that I would look at and be like, oh, I'm hiring a couple students to work under me this semester. Great. Well, there's a Doerr class on delegation. Let me take that and like build the skills that I need to be able to do this stuff more effectively. That's had a huge impact on my time at Rice.
That's awesome. How do you balance your academics with extracurricular activities, especially as a business student?
The answer is sometimes not well. I definitely went through a phase. I think it was like my sophomore spring when I was taking 18 hours and I was getting really involved in clubs and I was recruiting at the time. And there was a good couple of months where my weekday sleep schedule was 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And it was just brutal. I was drinking way too many cups of coffee every day. It was not healthy. Rice students listening to this, don't do that. Don't be like me. But I think going through that and having my body be so upset with me by the end of that, I think it forced me to sit down and think about that balance and how do you find that? And I think there's a couple aspects to it. One is that quality aspect of the things you're involved in that I was talking about earlier, right? Don't join everything. You don't have time for that, right? How do you find the places that are meaningful to you and where you can invest your time such that you won't be overwhelmed doing too many things, but you can sort of focus? Another aspect to that is thinking about what are the things, and I know this sounds very simple saying it now, but I think it was not quite on my mind as a sophomore yet, but what are the things where if I don't do this tonight, I'm in trouble, something's due tomorrow, or I got a big meeting, if I don't do this tonight, it's going to be a problem for me. I need to stay up for it. Versus what are the things where it's okay, I can take a chill pill, I can do this tomorrow, I can go to bed right now, I can do this tomorrow, and the world will keep spinning. Sort of as an extension of that, starting to think about how do I apply that not just to what's going to hit the fan tomorrow, but what's going to hit the fan 3-4 days from now, where I can start to think more over the long term of, okay, I'm starting my week. I know I got this club meeting in a couple of days. I got that presentation. I got an exam a week and change from now. How do I start to actually not just take things day by day, but take things week by week and start to structure my time such that on any given day, I'm not up until 2. I am nice and asleep by 11 or 12, and I'm still on top of things. And part of that is also ruthless calendar management of everything is on the calendar. My calendar is color coded you would not believe, just being super on top of everything all the time. Because there's so much stuff going on that if you're not careful about balancing extracurriculars and classes and staying on top of those deadlines, it's easy to get overwhelmed. And then you're not thinking because you're just emotional. And then you're staying up until all hours of the night trying to get things done. And that's no fun. I started forcing myself to think more in the long term, more than just what's coming up tomorrow. And I think that was a big change for me junior and senior year, where I feel I'm able to manage things a lot better than I used to.
I feel I really want to see this color-coded calendar now. It sounds incredible.
It's great. I think I have like 7 or 8 different categories of things, and everything from like, I'm like very OCD about this, but like my workout schedule in the morning, the time it takes me to commute to school, the time it takes me to like get ready is all in my calendar, and then all my meetings are in the day. And then I have blocked off in the evenings, like, here's when I'm biking home, here's when I'm going to bed. Nothing else can take that calendar time. It's booked. And so like forcing myself to be like religious about these are all the things that I adhere to, so that I'm not allowing myself to schedule homework time from 11 to 12 p.m. because like that's when I should be going to bed. It makes a big difference.
It does. And I think that that's something that a lot of freshmen and sophomores especially are trying to figure out. They've never had to manage their time. They've never had complete control over their time.
Yeah. And I mean, I think college is great training wheels because, you know, like this summer when I went and worked at an internship, it would be Monday, I'm in the office, I have meetings, and then I have to go catch a flight. I'm on a plane for 2-3 hours, and then I'm like in the Uber to a hotel somewhere. And then the next morning I got to be at work again. And so like there's so much stuff going on that like that was painful calendar management. You know, when you have a job, right? Like your meetings are always moving and things are popping up and whatever. And it's like stuff's all over the place. But when you spend college where like I have almost complete control over my schedule, like I know when my classes are going to be, I know when my recurring club meetings are. Yeah, you know, things come up, but like it's great training wheels where if you can get used to how you manage your calendar, even down to like, I know how much time it's going to take me, or I think I know how much time it's going to take me to do something, so that when you get to a real job, you feel a lot more comfortable with that idea of owning your calendar and being able to control it.
So speaking of internships, what was your first internship and how did you get it?
I knew nothing about business when I started college. I had been a musician my entire life. And so going into like freshman spring, when I first started thinking about internships, the way I thought about, and this is the advice that I give all the time to freshmen when they ask me about how do I find internships, what should I be doing? I start to think about like, where do I want to be full-time when I'm graduating? What kind of stuff do I want to be doing? Where am I now in terms of my experience, in terms of my skill set? And then I have 3 summers in between that. I always think about like, what are the tools I want to have in my toolbox? Or what are the industries that I want to experience? Either because I know something I want to do, or I want to see if it's something I maybe don't want to do. And then sort of thinking about that over a long-term perspective. So I knew my freshman spring, I was like, hey, this consulting thing seems really interesting. I had gone to a couple CCD events. I had a friend at the time who was a senior, was going into it, and she got me super excited about it. And so I was like, hey, this seems super interesting. I think this might be something I want to do 2 summers or full-time 3 years from now. But I know like nothing about anything rather. So I started thinking about, okay, what are the things I need to have in my toolbox if my toolbox is empty right now? For me, that started with, I want to learn about what does it take to start a business? What does it take to develop a strategy, to understand who your customer is, to understand what your product is? And for me, that was about startups. I went and worked for, there's a division at Rice called the Rice Alliance for Technology and Entrepreneurship. They are amazing. And every summer they host a startup accelerator. They've been doing it, like 12 years now, called OwlSpark. And every summer they bring in, like a dozen or so startups and basically spend the whole summer with them. And they usually have 1 or 2 interns who, it's nothing like glamorous, but sort of helping like the operations and doing some marketing. Sometimes we'd go out and pick up pizza for lunch. But for me, it was about how do I get the exposure to what it takes to start a business? And not only that, like working for a startup accelerator, I got to see like a dozen different startups in a dozen different industries doing a dozen different kinds of things, all like in real time throughout that whole summer, watching them figure out what is my product? Who is my customer? How do I develop a strategy? How do I communicate my vision to investors? And for me, just that exposure, being there in the room with them, watching them go through that process was fascinating, and taught me so much about that entire, not only startup industry, but business and like where businesses come from and how they develop and how to think about them, that I think has been super helpful for me over the last couple of years since.
That sounds like an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The year after I did it, one of my friends was sort of in a similar boat, and I was like, hey, you should go do this. And so she ended up doing that internship the year after I did it. And she now also has been super involved with them for the last couple of years. Freshmen, look out for it in the spring. OwlSpark, it's a great time.
So you already have a job. You're a senior who already has a job, which is so great. Congratulations. And take us through your career journey from the Rice Alliance to already having your postgraduate job.
definitely a journey. So I finished up my freshman term at Rice Alliance starting sophomore year. Timelines change a little bit every year, but for me, that was when I sort of was like, okay, I'm going to get serious about this consulting thing. How do I get internships? How do I do all that stuff? The first part of that was on campus. I joined Rice Consulting that fall. And that sort of started giving my first exposure to people in that space who had gone through recruiting.
And you can just join it. It's like a club. Anybody can join. Or do you have to?
So kind of. Rice Consulting is a bit unique compared to some of the other clubs on campus in that we have a dual mission. One of those is we actually do consulting works with clients in Houston. Everything from, we've done local mom and pop restaurants, we've done nonprofits. We just worked with League of Women Voters last semester, which was a lot of fun, to like big Fortune 100 companies. And so we do real consulting projects with them. And so that requires us to be very careful about the folks that we staff on those projects, the training that we give them to be in the club, to be staffed on a team that has a like application process and interviews and such. But the other part of our mission is helping Rice students writ large get access to consulting resources, get access to career help. And so we do tons of public events. Like we co-host the CCG's Consulting Careers Night. We host firms all the time on campus. We do resume reviews, mentorship programs, all that kind of stuff. So we have lots of publicly available resources. But that semester was the first time I joined as an analyst where I was staffed on one of those teams. And my team lead at the time was a senior who was going to BCG full time. So he was always talking about that experience and it's like, hey, that's really cool. Would you be willing to do a mock interview with me? And it sucked. I had no idea what I was doing. But I was like, hey, this is kind of interesting. It's solving a little business problem in a 45-minute mock interview. It's neat. And so started doing a bunch of research in the space and I got involved with case competitions, which are a ton of fun. They're usually like a week long, kind of give you the chance to see what it would be like to work at one of these firms. I did one with EY Parthenon. That was a lot of fun. That was sort of like we were pretending that we were helping a company acquire another company and sort of like thinking about, what does it take to do like mergers and acquisitions, like due diligence work and financial modeling? Like I had no idea what I was doing. But I was like, hey, this is really fun. Let me find more of these. And so then I got involved with another case competition, the Accenture Innovation Challenge, which was really cool because unlike most other case competitions that are sort of school by school, like the Parthenon one was just Rice students, the Accenture Innovation Challenge is nationwide and they've been doing it for like 15 years now. And every year they actually partner with a real nonprofit. You have a real challenge that you're working on with them. And the folks who win that competition with solution actually like becomes part of that. And so like they'd worked with like the World Wildlife Fund, and I think like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, like big names like that in the past. And the year that I did it, my sophomore, this was like going into spring of my sophomore year, was with Smithsonian Institution, which was really, really cool.
Awesome.
So much fun. And the problem that we were trying to solve was how can the Smithsonian better connect with rural communities in America, right? Because they are so concentrated in DC. And yeah, they have these sort of other museums, but they're usually in big cities, right? Like, and so they were thinking about how do we connect more with people who aren't in those big cities, who can't sort of like drive to one of those. And so I was on a team with 3 other Rice students and that competition lasted like 2 months, 3 different rounds. First one was sort of with schools all in the Southwest. And then we advanced to sort of a more national level, like a Final 16. And then for the final round, we were invited out to Washington, D.C. to the Smithsonian. And it was so cool. I'd never done anything like that before. They like flew us out to D.C., put us up in this hotel. We were going to present our like final solution in person to the undersecretaries that like oversee the entire Smithsonian. And then a bunch of like Accenture partners. And there were 3 other schools there. It was us, Stanford, MIT, and the UCs. Yeah, it was crazy. We had a dinner the night before when we all got in and just seeing all those students there, seeing the big name schools, like it was very intimidating. We like all went back to our hotel room that night and met up together and ran our presentation a bunch of times. The next day we came in to this beautiful Accenture office in downtown DC and did our whole presentation. So much fun. So nerve-wracking. I remember at one point so you would present and then we had a Q&A. Whenever you're trying to pitch a program, especially to something like the Smithsonian whose funding is overseen by Congress, getting that funding, always tricky. But one of the undersecretaries said to me, hey, I think your funding idea is great, but what if I were a congressman right here in the room with you and I knew that I needed to be able to have a way that I could explain this to my constituents of why I was spending their tax dollars on this? What would you say to me? Like on the spot. And literally like I blacked out. Like, I don't remember what I said. I just remember I locked in and I gave some speech. Apparently it was good, but I literally don't remember a word that I said.
Awesome.
Fortunately enough, we ended up winning, which was crazy. Like, still to this day, one of the coolest things I've gotten to do. And our solution, which was basically like taking buses and converting them into mobile museums and then driving them like across the country to rural communities so that they can actually like meet people where they are. And then also almost like StoryCorps style, like record interviews with these people of their stories and bring those back to the Smithsonian for exhibitions there. So that whole solution, we called it, what we call it? Oh, it was called Rural Routes. And it's actually what happens when you win the competition is there is a like team of consultants at Accenture that gets staffed on like a project, taking your idea and bring it to life. So next year, 2020, or no, 2 years from now, 2026, for the 250th anniversary of the US, that's when it's going to launch as like part of the Smithsonian's like celebrations, which is crazy cool. Long-winded way of saying this was like March of my sophomore year. And I came back from that and was like, oh my God, I'm so sold on this consulting thing. Like, this is what I want to do. And so I started looking around, applying to programs, and I was fortunate enough to do this 1-week program at Bain right after sophomore year in May. They like brought us all out to Dallas. We spent a week staffed on a team, got to stay in the hotels, do the airplanes, the food, the whole thing. It was so much fun. I was like, wow, like, okay, this is what I want to do. Went through a bunch more interviews after that, was fortunate enough to get an offer to come back and do my junior year internship there. And so that was a week program in May. I still had my whole sophomore summer. And so to back to my toolbox analogy, I was thinking about like, okay, freshman year, I kind of spent it figuring out what are the tools I want to have. I started to understand the business. What is like the next tool I need? And for me, that was, okay, I understand what it takes to start a business, but how do I analyze a business? How do I understand the way business works? How do I understand the finance? Like, I don't know anything about that. And so I went and worked for an asset management firm in New York doing equity research, which was really, really fun, super deep into like financial statement analysis and meeting with management teams, like understanding how do you value a company and understand their strategy and all that sort of stuff. It was really, really, really cool. And so that sort of was like the next tool I needed in my toolbox that set me up for junior year. And so this past summer, I spent it at Bain, and like truly an incredible experience. I was staffed on a team in Denver. So every week I was traveling out to Denver, which was super fun. I love Denver. And the case we were on was really interesting. It was this oil and gas company that basically didn't exist like 2 years ago. They did like over $5 billion in M&A, basically bought like 6 other companies in 2 years, went from like 300-ish FTEs to over 1,000 FTEs in 2 years. And so their C-suite came to us and were like, hey, we've like massively grown in size over the last couple of years. We need some help figuring out what our company should look like, what our operating model should be. The case is basically like helping them put on their like big boy business pants now. And it was this really interesting mix of like quantitatively doing a lot of benchmarking of understanding like what should a company like this look like, from like how many, I don't know, HR or finance people should they have, to like how do you organize the structure of an organization to make sense for its new size. And then qualitatively, we did a lot of work on what's called executive decision making, of taking the C-suite, figuring out what are all of the decisions that a C-suite makes on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis? What are all the meetings they have? And then how do you figure out when and how they should make decisions, not only for themselves, but also then how do they communicate those decisions to the rest of the organization so that a top-line strategy can get executed across the firm and so that they can make decisions as they grow into the future. Fascinating project, really changed the way that I think about how organizations function. Love the experience. Very, very excited to be going back.
That's so exciting. Congratulations. You have taken a ton of Doerr programs. You're a Doerr Lead Ambassador, been involved since freshman year. What are some of the key leadership skills you've developed over your time here that you really noticed have made an impact in all of your career experiences?
I think macro level, over all of the courses that I've taken, I've learned a lot about how to have confidence as a leader and how to communicate, right? Like every Doerr program, whether it's like activation where you're one-on-one, or something like synthesis or catalyst where you're with a group of people, or even like excursions where you're like going and meeting a leader, you're always practicing talking in front of people, talking to people, practicing taking what you're learning in whatever given, whether that's a group module or an individual thing like activation, and communicating that. I've noticed over the last couple of years, my ability to communicate my thoughts, to communicate the things I've worked on, to communicate my goals has gotten so much better just from getting that practice of like myself communicating and then being around other leaders and watching how they communicating, picking up from that. And then a little bit more tactically, like every semester, I think I sort of come in, I think about what are the things that I'm working on right now or challenges I think I'm going to face. And then I kind of go through the list of Doerr programs for that semester and think about, okay, what sort of matches up with that? One of the things that I found really helpful is I took an activation course one semester where I really focused on the idea of crafting a vision and a story. And, as I was sort of getting ready to take on leadership roles where I knew I needed to, for myself, be able to look at like an organization and go, okay, what are the problems and what is sort of the vision that I'm crafting for a solution here? And then be able to take that and communicate it to an organization, get people excited about it. And so that's something that's been super helpful for me in college. And I know especially, once I'm out in a career, if I'm leading a team one day, those same skills are so important. And kind of on that teamwork side, I've taken a bunch of Doerr courses that focus on teamwork, whether that's more from the delegation side of things, and sort of how do I understand individuals and figure out their strengths and weaknesses, and how do I find the right people to do the right kind of work, to like dealing with conflict, right? And when people don't agree either on a vision or maybe between people, right? How do you think about dealing with that and maintaining the idea of, task conflict versus individual conflict, and how do we balance that? And I think Doerr always says, and I think it's so true, that leaders aren't born, they're made. When you're kind of going through life in high school and college, nobody ever really teaches you how to be a leader. Like there's no like leadership 101 in high school. And so coming into college, there's not like a set path of classes you take for that, but you're still going to face those challenges in whatever clubs or jobs that you have. So I think for me, as I was sort of figuring out like, where do I go? Who do I turn to figure this stuff out? Doerr sort of every semester has been there with me for whatever it is that I'm facing in that particular semester, to come in and work on that and have not just a place, but also a community of people who are also working on those things or who have faced those things and then have answers to them now, that I've been able to talk about that with and be able to find solutions and bring my own experiences and ideas to sort of help all of us become better leaders.
I love that. Do you have a favorite Doerr program that you've done?
Oh man, I've done so many. It's hard to choose. There's different kinds of favorites, because I did our excursion to NPR. I think it was like a year and a half ago. We went and met with the woman who runs the NPR station here in Houston. And that was fascinating to see like somebody, not only somebody who is like in their career at their place, seeing how they work with their team, but also like in that field, right? Which is literally all about how do you communicate with others, and also covering like what leaders are doing. It just sort of like also had a very meta aspect to it that I think was fascinating. And I was like, I think to do or to delegate is still one of my all-time favorite Catalyst modules, because I think that was one that really forced me to self-reflect. One, on the to-do part of things of like, who am I as a leader? Like, what am I good at? What do I need to push myself to be better at when I'm thinking about like the work that I'm doing? And also like at the same time thinking about others, of like, who is the team that I'm working with? What are they good at? How do I find the places and spaces where we can work together on stuff? I think that just had a very like overall impact on me through what it covered. But I don't know. They've all been great. It's hard to choose.
What final piece of advice would you offer to, especially to new students at Rice who want to make the most out of their time here?
Like I said in the beginning, the cult of busyness is such a thing here. It's so easy to get swept up around everything. I think for your freshman fall, that's okay. Go join everything that you think might be interesting. Go find the things that get you excited, that you're passionate about. And then as you go through this fall semester, as you go into the spring, start to figure out what are the things of like, oh, I think this is something I really want to become a leader and get really involved and stay with, versus, oh, this is interesting, but maybe is it somewhere where I feel like I can commit for a longer period of time? So starting to sort of weed out like, what are the things that you're really excited about? And then figure out what are the things that you need to help you be successful as you do that. And I think that's where Doerr programs are great for that kind of stuff, of regardless of where your interest is or what kind of work you're doing, they can sort of come alongside you and help you be successful. And I think ultimately over the course of your freshman year, finding those like 2 to 4 activities, whether they are volunteer, club, job, where you're really excited to be there, where it's going to be really great for you, where you can like develop as a person, as a leader over the longer term. I think that's how I've been able to make the most of my time at Rice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your advice, and good luck having a wonderful senior year. And we're excited to be a part of it.
Thanks for having me, Kelly. It was great to be here. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for joining us for the Leading Owls podcast. We will be back next week with more leadership journeys and tips to share. New episodes release each Wednesday. For more information on the Doerr Institute for New Leaders and our free leader development programs for Rice students, please visit doerr.rice.edu.